Ladies and gentlemen, our next session focuses on a critical aspect of our industry. It's quality management maturity. Key expectations from the industry. Let's hear from two distinguished speakers with us today. First up, we have with us Ms. Jacquin Jones, an international relations specialist from the India office of the USFDA. Ms. Jones will provide us with valuable insights into the regulatory expectations surrounding quality management maturity program. Following her, we will hear from Ms. Samantha Atkinson, Executive Vice President and Principal Consultant in Lifesciences at NSF, who will share the European perspective on the topic and brief about NSF. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ms. Jacquin Jones.
Namaste. Thank you for inviting FDA to join IPA's 9th Global Pharmaceutical Quality Summit. It's such a pleasure to see so many familiar faces today. And also, I thank our previous speakers for setting the groundwork for much of my talk. So, I gotta move myself forward here. I don't think it's a magnet. Okay. Sorry for that. So I just wanted to highlight what we'll be going over in today's talk. I'll be introducing the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality and highlighting what we're seeing in drug shortages and supply chain vulnerabilities, and introducing and providing updates on the agency's Quality Management Maturity Program. So just by way of background, I'm sure many of you all know that India is one of the leading nations exporting medical products and foods to the US, and FDA established an in-country presence 15 years ago in India with a mission to ensure the safety, quality, and effectiveness of medical products and food products produced in India, which are intended for exports to the US. The mission of this work is done with the help of international, policy, technical, inspectional, leadership staff. Some of the goals that the FDA India office includes identifying and analyzing emerging issues that may impact FDA-regulated decisions on the products that we regulate, which are entering into the US market, and also conducting inspections here in country. So now let me introduce the Office of Quality Surveillance, also known as OQS. OQS is an office that is within the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality within the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, which we refer to as CEDAR. The vision of this office is to be a global benchmark for pharmaceutical quality and surveillance. And also, they use this information that as part of their mission to serve, to turn it into insight and actions to promote the availability of quality medicines for the US public. But OQS's mission is not just to support the American public. They also share intelligence with regulatory partners when applicable to promote the availability of medical products that are quality to the global market. So, how does OQS meet this mission? So, they meet their missions by using knowledge of current good regulatory manufacturing practices, regulations, guidance, and data analytics. OQS maintains a site catalog, and also they are involved in the site selection for inspections. And as Dr. Cavazzoni mentioned earlier, the state of pharmaceutical quality falls under their purview, and the report was just published this June of 2024. So let's hit on shortages. It's on everybody's mind and definitely impacted not just the United States, but it's a global concern as well here and around the world. So previously, 62% of drug shortages were caused by quality issues. But in the past 2 years, we have found that quality issues and increased in demand have individually accounted for 40% of new drug shortages. Quality problems can be related to specific quality defects in individual drugs or quality problems at the manufacturer. Since quality remains one of the primary reasons for new shortages, if we can drive the opportunity to have quality valued in the production manufacturing culture of the industry, this could lead to a reduction in quality issues and in turn drug shortages. So I do want to touch on the fact that there has been issues with the demand. So since the public health emergency began, there has been a rise in drug shortages due to an increase in demand. These demand-driven shortages provide new challenges for FDA because there's no type of notification process or requirements for these type of shortages. So what we're seeing also is the consolidation of API manufacturers can mean that finished dosage form manufacturers are now relying on only one or two sources for their APIs, which we think was also contributing to these shortages. Oops, apologies. So also, I think we've heard here today that there's product discontinuations are on the rise, and manufacturers are leaving the marketplace. Or we're also seeing there's consolidations of and trimming down of portfolios. So now I'm going to switch over to one of the potential solutions that the U.S. has been working on to address drug shortages. In June of 2018, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators and 104 members of the House of Representatives wrote to Dr. Scott Gottlieb, then the commissioner of the FDA, to ask for assistance for the nation's drug shortage crisis. They urged FDA to convene a task force to study the problems, prepare a report on the root cause of the drug shortages, and make recommendations for enduring solutions. FDA convened an interagency task force of senior officials and invited public participants through a public meeting in November of 2018 with a docket so that they could provide comments, and also had stakeholders come to a series of listening sessions. The task force recommended that the FDA have FDA economists and scientists do analysis of drugs, which they did look at, which were in shortage between the calendar year of 2013 and 2017, with a view of understanding the underlying forces that were driving the shortages. So out of this task force, there was a recommendation for the creation of a rating system to innovate drug manufacturers to invest in achieving quality management maturity systems. The ratings could, in turn, reward manufacturers for mature quality management. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So let me go ahead and move on to an introduction to the, I apologize, quality management maturity system. Now that the task force had come out with recommendations, the QMM was born. So as a result of these QMM, studies from the University of St. Gallen have demonstrated that a positive correlation between quality management systems effectiveness scores and the degree of implementation of technical and cultural enablers are a benefit. Manufacturers can achieve higher levels of quality management when they successfully integrate business and manufacturing operations with quality practices and technological advancements in order to optimize product quality, enhance supply chain resiliency, and drive continual improvement. And I think that's something that we've been hearing from our other speakers previously. Also, establishments with more effective and efficient quality systems and a strong culture of quality that permeates all levels of the organization will be high on the spectrum of quality management maturity. So let's hit on some of the benefits of quality, and this is nothing new. So quality management maturity and the benefits are of robust quality systems have been hit on by Demings, Crosby, and Feigenbaum, who have described the cost of quality. It is incorrect to assume that higher quality necessarily translates into higher costs. Understanding achieving higher quality does require investment, though. It makes money. You need to have materials, manpower, and time. It is important to recognize, though, that poor quality also incurs costs. And we've heard today that you'll have loss of production, need to rework batches, or you'll have a damage to your reputation, and that can be not just for the manufacturer, but for the industry. Product failures or product recalls are also damaging. Loss of market shares can be seen. So there is a price to nonconformity. So in the long run, relying on inspections, audits, and quality control testing, and ensuring that they can assure that these will be costly. And their needs to remediate means that you will also incur further costs that can ultimately be saved if you had originally built quality into the product to begin with. So operational excellence and a culture of quality corresponds with high levels of quality management maturity. High levels of quality, QMM, can reap many benefits, such as identifying risks of failure and mitigating them before quality problems arise, optimizing product quality and processing performance, improving operational efficiencies, increasing customer satisfaction, and potentially generating revenues that are higher with the associated reduced costs that would have been incurred in remediation and addressing the poor quality issues. So, the goals of the QMM program were described in FDA's white paper that they had published, but I'll point them out here. So we want to foster a strength of quality culture mindset, recognize establishments that have advanced quality management practices, and identify areas where quality management practices can be enhanced. And finally, we want to minimize risk to product availability. Adopting mature quality management practices supports a more reliable drug supply chain by reducing the occurrence of quality-related failures, and improves the ability of establishments to maintain performance during expected and unexpected supply chain disruptions. So there are misconceptions out there about QMM, so I wanted to touch on them today. Most importantly, information from QMM assessments is not intended to evaluate compliance with CGMP or support regulatory actions. We get that question quite a bit. QMM assessments cannot and do not evaluate the quality of specific products. And QMM is not an additional burden or requirement. It is voluntary. So, everybody who has already heard about the QMM program is probably interested in hearing some updates. So I'll go ahead and say that we have completed 2 pilot programs which were completed in 2022, and these cover domestic finished dosage form manufacturers and foreign API manufacturers. In April of 2022, CDER published its first white paper on QMM, and in May of 2022, FDA held workshops with QMM pilot participants to share participant perspectives, lessons learned for the public, and learned information about the quality rating system itself. In October of 2022, in conjunction with Dun & Bradstreet, FDA published a research article on benchmarking of quality practices for the pharmaceutical industry in order to enhance supply chain resilience. In November of 2022, an FDA advisory committee voted unanimously in support of the development of CDER's QMM program. In January of 2023, CDER published an article on lessons learned from the pilot program. And then in August of 2023, CDER released a second white paper on the QMM. And in September of 2023, There was a Federal Register notice published soliciting volunteers for comments about the QMM program. And then in January of 2024, we did another Federal Register notice. And this time, we were soliciting volunteers who would be able to participate in the voluntary quality management maturity prototype assessment protocol evaluation. And I know the question is out there, whether India has any skin in the game on that. And I'll just say that we do have awareness that a regional volunteer was selected. But other than that, I'm unable to provide any further information on that. And lastly, in April of 2024, volunteers were selected for the prototype program evaluation. So it's important that CDER FDA involves stakeholder feedback on this program. So as mentioned in November of 2022, the Pharmaceutical Science and Clinical Pharmacology Advisory Committee voted unanimously in support of CDER's QMM program. So CDER has been committed to engaging stakeholders and gathering input on the program, which has included FDA partners, manufacturers, and pharmaceutical sector stakeholders. So I just wanted to touch on the actual pilot program itself. It occurred between October of 2020 to March of 2022. There were 2 assessments done, and this was completed by external FDA contractors. Once the program was done, the SBI workshop on QMM was with pilot participants who shared their positive experience with a wider audience. So I want to touch on some of those lessons learned from the various areas that we have listed here. So regarding the assessment process, there was benefit orientation that was needed to set expectations. We heard that there's a need for the assessors to speak to employees at different levels within the establishment, such as management and line workers. There will also be a need to streamline redundancy in questions. Regarding the scoring approach, we got feedback that there needs to be simplification of the scoring rubrics to help to make sure that scoring is a little bit more accurate. And also we need to work on having more objective criteria to discern between maturity levels and on a consistent, unbiased, data-driven, and scientific manner. And then we also need to look at ways to account for missing data and outlier data because we found that some of the respondents didn't always fit in nice and neatly into the scoring. Regarding assessor behaviors, we found that FDA will need to be doing more training of assessors on the tool, scoring, and rubrics, and also make sure that they have a good understanding of CGMP regulations and FDA's quality guidance documents so that they can distinguish between behaviors that meet or exceed CGMP expectations. Regarding perception of the assessment questions, we heard back that there was a missed opportunity for participants to ask follow-up questions, and there is also going to be a need to adhere to the planned assessment questions at the time of the interviews. For reports, we found that the display of data would be helpful if we had it more in a radar spider plot rather than a tabulated score. And finally, for ratings, we found that there was some confusion about the nomenclature of the program and the ratings themselves. So it is important to note that QMM assessment will not evaluate product quality, which I stated before, and rather that the assessment evaluates an establishment's culture, behaviors, attitudes, and enhanced quality management practices. Establishments with higher QMM are more likely to produce a robust supply chain and have fewer quality-related disruptions. So FDA will be holding another the volunteer pilot program. And as discussed, we have selected 9 volunteers, but I did want to let you know that there will be additional opportunities for volunteers in the coming years. At this time, we do not have a specific date of when the actual QMM program will be rolled out, but we will have more information to come as the program is being developed. So let me go over some of the practice areas that the QMM program covers. So the 5 practice areas, first of all, were identified through review of the literature on quality management, including existing programs that evaluate elements of quality culture related to pharmaceutical quality. There was also a survey of external stakeholders and gathering of feedback from partners and centers within FDA. And also, the information on these practice areas were developed based on evaluating data from the 2 pilot programs and the feedback from the pilot participants. All right, let's touch on the management continuity to quality practice area. So we've heard today, all levels of management need to be committed to quality. Management is responsible for setting a tone and modeling a